Good morning, everybody. Good morning, live viewers, replay viewers. Hey, Cynthia, Aaron, Jana. Hi. This is Juna. Hey, Michelle. He's not normally needy, but he wouldn't get off my lap. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Mom. So, there's a little kitty moment for you. He's the one that was truly feral. Took me 4 months to get a hold on. Good morning. Oops. Yeah, he's got cold feet. Oh my gosh. Now my phone won't turn around. Oh, there we go. I waited 2 seconds too long. Yeah, he's got cold feet, I'm sure. He's not normally all... I mean, he's an affectionate little guy. But he's not, not normally like that. Okay. Oh, really? Darn it. The updates, we need the updates. We need them to give us an option to approve followers, like follower requests, rather than people can just follow you. And then also, I just wanted to say, hashtag car scope, hashtag dumbass. Don't scope in your car. Don't do it. I'm shocked that that's still... I'm shocked that that's still happening. Like, if I was a police officer and I had time on my hands, I would just sit on scope and try to find people. Oh, I forgot the do not disturb thing. Facebook stuff still pops up, but... okay. I'm a little tired. We had level 2 workshop last night, and it was super awesome. Then I always have trouble going to sleep. But let's talk about some big magic. Big magic. When you're... Oh, no. I didn't know somebody drove drunk and scoped it. That's like triple bad dream. That's a triple bad dream. That's horrendous. That's a death wish. The problem is it'd be someone else probably that would get run over by her. Okay, so when you start reversing your goal setting, good morning, Tanya, and you're going to let life come to you more than you going out and struggling, you still have work to do, but you do it from a place of connected energy so that when you sit down to write or you get ready to make your phone calls or send off a resume or whatever, you get centered first. And of course, we use core desired feelings in the desire map process. If you're not familiar with that, you can just Google Danielle Laporte. Hey, Linda. Good morning. Hi, Betty. But it can be anything centered in prayer, centered after meditation, before you take any action. That's how you start accessing what she's talking about in this book. Thanks for the shares and hearts, peoples. I appreciate that. The big magic of a creative life comes to you best when you ask it to, when you invite it to, and you make yourself available. Got to make yourself available for it. So we were talking last time about her, about the poet who, could feel a poem coming toward her and moving through her and would grab the tiger by the tail. So the next section is hard labor versus fairy dust. And she says, I believe in it, big magic. I believe in it because I believe we're all capable of brushing up against a sense of mystery and inspiration in our lives. We've probably all had an experience of being in touch with that mysterious nature of life, even if it was just for a moment. Maybe we can't all be pure divine channels like Ruth Stone, pouring forth unadulterated creation every single day without obstacle or doubt, but we may be able to draw nearer to that source than we think, and we absolutely can. It's a skill like any other skill, training yourself to access that stream of energy on purpose. Anybody can learn that. Most of my writing life, to be perfectly honest, is not freaky old-timey voodoo style big magic. She was the poet that she was talking about when we met last time. Ruth Stone was an American poet who was in touch with that creative stream, sounds like as soon, from childhood. Like she never lost her connection. Most of my writing life consists of nothing more than unglamorous, disciplined labor. I sit at my desk and I work like a farmer, and that's how it gets done. Most of it's not fairy dust in the least. The day-to-day grind, the day-to-day tasks, sometimes you're doing them because you are being pulled through life by the end goal, because it's such a wonderful place that you want to experience. But there is still day-to-day grinds where, hi Evie, where you don't want to do the work. Hi Deb, like you wake up in the morning and you're just not interested. And if you keep going, if you recall your connection and that feeling, then you'll find yourself doing the tedious task with a better mind frame. You'll do it with a good feeling in your heart, as a friend of mine used to say. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it with a good feeling in my heart. Good morning. But sometimes it is fairy dust. Hey there. Sometimes when I'm in the midst of writing, I feel like I'm suddenly walking on one of those moving sidewalks that you find in a big airport. I still have a long slog to my gate, and my baggage is still heavy. But I can feel myself being gently propelled by some exterior force. Something is carrying me along, something powerful and generous, and that something is decidedly not me. And I would disagree with her on that. I don't believe it's a separate force. I think it is part of us, but because we're so unfamiliar with it, it feels like a separate self, a separate entity or life force. And that's probably the only thing so far in this book that I disagree with her on. I don't think that... Can you guys see anything on the screen? I forgot to turn one of my things off. Okay. So, that something, that powerful, generous force, that something that we feel carrying us along is, I believe, us. Just a different aspect of us that we're not familiar with. And in the process of getting familiar with it, it can feel foreign. And I don't believe it is. You may know this feeling. It's the feeling you get when you've made something wonderful or done something wonderful. And when you look back at it later, all you can say is, I don't even know where that came from. You can't repeat it. You can't explain it. But it felt as if you were being guided. I only rarely experience this feeling, but it's the most magnificent sensation imaginable when it arrives. I don't think there is a more perfect happiness to be found in life than this state, except perhaps, it's a great feeling, falling in love. In ancient Greek, the word for the highest degree of human happiness was eudaimonia, which basically means well-demoned. That is nicely taken care of by some external divine creative spirit guide. Modern commentators, perhaps uncomfortable with the sense of divine mystery, simply call it flow or being in the zone. So you'll hear that in science and sports. Oh, I was in the zone, or I was in the flow. And there's a book, I can't ever pronounce the guy's name, but it's about flow. I think it's just called Flow. That's your connection to God. That's your connection to that higher part of yourself when we're in the zone. You can call it whatever you want, but the thing is you can access that deliberately with practice, with skill building. The Greeks and the Romans both believed in the idea of an external daemon of creativity, a sort of house elf, if you will, who lived within the walls of your home and who sometimes aided you in your labors. The Romans had a specific term for that helpful house elf. They called it your genius, your guardian deity, the conduit of your inspiration, which is to say, the Romans didn't believe that an exceptionally gifted person was a genius. They believed that an exceptionally gifted person had a genius. So it didn't belong to you. It's something external that you got lucky to have. It's a subtle but important distinction, being versus having, and I think it's a wise psychological construct. The idea of an external genius helps to keep the artist's ego in check, distancing him somewhat from the burden of taking either full credit or full blame for the outcome of his work. If your work is successful, in other words, you're obliged to thank. I think they're using that term interchangeably, but I just barely saw those comments as it faded away. So I missed it. If you need to re-ask it, that's totally fine. If your work is successful, you have to thank your external genius, thus holding you back from total narcissism. And if your work fails, it's not entirely your fault. You can say, hey, don't look at me. I'm going to blame my genius. Yes, me too. Me too. I agree with that. That's how I would say it too. Either way, the vulnerable human ego is protected from the corrupting influence of praise, and protected from the corrosive effects of shame. However, I do think that we can become very practiced at owning our genius, or owning what our connection to our larger spirit helps us produce. And that's not just art or writing. That's being a therapist. That's being a helper of any kind. You acknowledge that it's you and not you. Yeah, the two can act as one. It's you and it's not. It's your higher self, but not your brain. It's not your ego part that's doing the work. Your ego part is stepping aside and saying, okay, larger part or higher self or whatever you want to call it, move through me and help this person with their highest good and my highest good at the forefront. Because we don't know what a person's highest good is. So the only thing that's most effective that we can do, in my opinion, is step aside and let that higher, wiser part of our self, allowing spirit to talk through and to come through you. You're the conduit. But I do still think that's part of us. I don't think that's separate, because I don't see how we can possibly be separate. If everything is one, then everything is one. And we may need to think of it as separations or different streams of energy to make sense of it with our minds. But at the end of the day, I do believe it's all one field of energy. One God, if you will. Our personal genius is the allowing space for spirit and interpreting. Yeah, that's a great way to think of it. So, no credit, no blame is what I got taught in graduate school. You don't take full credit and you don't take full blame. Everything is a partnership, and that includes creating a drawing or creating a book or helping someone through something or helping someone heal in what to do with family member. You're the conduit. That's it. You're offering. You're expressing your genius in the world, and it's an offering, and people can take it or not. And if they can't take it, or they want you to, there has to be an exchange. If they're pulling on you and trying to take, like in a graspy, greedy kind of way, that can be dissolved. Oh, good. That can be dissolved by fully expressing your love and fully expressing your conduit to spirit. Then people can pull and tug on you all they want, and they're not going to throw you off center. So, for example, sometimes my workshops are expensive. Relatively speaking, excuse me, they're actually not expensive in comparison to some other workshops, and they're higher than some other workshops. So they are the price that they are. Sometimes it works for people, sometimes it doesn't. In my how I handle that is right. I do. There's a lot, but how I handle the people who are like, "Wow, that's way too much," or "Why are you charging that much?" I just say, if it's for you, you'll find a way. I might not be the right teacher for you. You might need to take the person who's teaching it for $100 if that's more in line with how you feel. I don't take that personal. And I will say to people, well, you can get this Desire Map material for free on YouTube. You can Google Danielle Laporte. There's tons of stuff on her website. If you're not ready to make an investment, that's totally fine. Yeah. So I will offer a payment plan, but it has to be something reasonable. But it took a while to get comfortable with that. It took a while for me to say to myself, I'm a conduit for some powerful energy. And if I'm the right person for the seeker, if I'm the right teacher for the seeker, then they'll figure it out. And I don't have to worry about that. They can take care of it. Yeah, because it used to bug me and it doesn't bother me anymore because that's the way it is. If I'm the right person, the money will be there. If I'm not the right person, I'm happy to give you a list of resources to find it. Someone else. Definitely. Definitely. So when she's talking about art, she's talking about anything. Making a baby blanket, cooking a meal for your family, planting a garden. All of those experiences are enhanced by getting yourself in the zone first. Right. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. We assume because we feel funny about it that they're going to feel funny about it. Yeah, we put our own stuff on every part of our life. Okay, so she says, I think society did a great disservice to artists when we started saying that certain people were geniuses instead of saying that they had geniuses. That happened around the Renaissance when the rise of a more rational and human centered view of life. The gods and the mysteries fell away, and suddenly we put all the credit and blame for creativity on the artists themselves, making the all too fragile humans completely responsible for the vagaries of inspiration. In the process, we also venerated art and artists beyond their appropriate stations. The distinction of being a genius and the rewards and status associated with it elevated creators into something like a priestly caste, perhaps even into minor deities, which I think is a bit too much pressure for mere mortals, no matter how talented. I totally agree with her there. That's when artists started to crack. Yes, definitely. Driven mad and broken in half by the weight and weirdness of their gifts. When artists are burdened with the label genius, I think they lose the ability to take themselves lightly or to create freely. And that process stops people from drawing all the time. I hear that from all the time. Oh, I can't draw a straight line. Well, if you practice, you could eventually draw a circle. And then you can practice more and you can put the circles together and make something. Right. And sometimes people have a wife that keeps their ego in check. Or a spouse or friends that keep your ego in check. But it stops, because we've put artists and artistic people up on a pedestal, it stops people from understanding, and we've shrouded it in mystery, and it stops people from understanding that it's a skill like any other skill. If you can learn to drive a car, you can learn to draw a pig. It just takes practice like anything else. Hey, Kim. It's not a mystery. It's not magical. It is and it isn't. It's not unattainable. Anybody can learn to draw. Anybody. It may be harder or easier for some people, but anybody can learn it. Okay, so she says, yeah, easier for some, but everybody can do it. That's true. So consider Harper Lee. Right, exactly. Practice so you can get anywhere. Even Carnegie Hall. So consider Harper Lee, for instance, who wrote nothing for decades after the phenomenal success of To Kill a Mockingbird. In 1962, when Lee was asked how she felt about the possibility of ever writing another book, she replied, "I'm scared." She also said, "When you're at the top, there's only one way to go." I think that happens to young actors and actresses when they get a bunch of Oscar awards when they're 18 or 19. I think it's just too much. It's just too much, but too soon for their age, for their development. And unless they have some pretty strong family and support systems around them, they crumble and fall too. It's just too much. Because Lee never elaborated more definitively on her situation, we'll never know why this wildly successful author didn't go on to write dozens more books in her lifetime. Yeah, they can't handle it. Even on a scale of, I saw let me see if I can make this vague enough. I saw a person. I don't think they watch my scopes, but I did see someone in a professional capacity get 2 highly significant awards too early in his career. And as we suspected it would, well, Taylor Swift has a really strong family structure. So I think she hasn't cracked because she has a very solid family support network that keeps her in check. So this man won 2 highly regarded professional awards very early in his career, and he was never any good after that. Like, it went straight to his head, and then he assumed if he had won these awards, then he must be at the top of his game, and so he continued to act like that. Taylor Swift's grandmother? So he got like, oh, well, I must be as smart as I can be. And then he got, oh, that's interesting. Then he got cocky and was never really great after that. Okay. So for Harper Lee, maybe it all got too heavy, too freighted with responsibility, and her artistry died of fear or worse, self-competition. What was there for Harper Lee to be afraid of after all? Possibly just this, that she could not outdo Harper Lee. She couldn't outdo herself. Yeah, you have to stay grounded. I can't believe there's something I don't know about Taylor. I love that Taylor Swift. I know a lot of people hate her, but I just admire the heck out of her. So as for having reached the top with only one way to go from there, Harper Lee had a point, no? I mean, if you cannot repeat a once-in-a-lifetime miracle, if you can never again reach the top, then why bother creating at all? Well, I can actually speak about this predicament from personal experience because I myself was once at the top, with a book that sat on the bestseller list for more than 3 years. I can't tell you how many people during that time said to me, how are you ever going to top that? They'd speak of my great good fortune as though it were a curse, not a blessing, and would speculate how terrified I must feel at the prospect of not being able to reach such phenomenal heights again. But such thinking assumes that there is a top. This is important. That's the problem of comparison. That's the problem of thinking there's an end goal and not understanding that creativity is creativity. You just create and you don't worry about where it goes. If it goes to the top one time, super awesome, enjoy the benefits. If it doesn't go anywhere, doesn't matter. You're in the business of creating. That's your duty, to create, to honor that creative force within you and create with it. Where it goes doesn't matter. That's how you can get locked up in this thing of, well, it was a bestseller and I don't know if I can write another bestseller, so I'm not going to write at all. And fortunately, she didn't do that. It's her book, The Signature of All Things. I don't know if you guys have read it, but that's an excellent book. It's fiction and it's fabulous. Okay, but such thinking assumes there is a top and that reaching the top and staying there is the only motive one has to create. Such thinking assumes that the mysteries of inspiration operate on the same scale we do, on a limited human scale of success and failure, winning and losing, comparison and competition, etc. Such thinking assumes that you must be constantly victorious, not only against your peers, but against an earlier version of your own poor self. Most dangerous of all, you want to make it to the top? There's no top. Oh, with Taylor. That's funny. Most dangerously of all, such thinking assumes that if you can't win, then you must not continue to play. But what does any of this have to do with vocation? What does any of that have to do with the pursuit of love? What does any of that have to do with the strange communion between the human and the magical? What does any of that have to do with faith or the quiet glory of merely making things, then sharing those things with an open heart and no expectations? I'm going to read that again. What does any of that have to do with the quiet glory of merely making things and then sharing those things with an open heart and no expectations? And I'm going to say the way we did as kids. We made things all the time as kids. You can't stop a kid from creating things. And they'll share them with whoever will take them. and they want to share them, and they'll shove them at you. They want to share their creations, whether that's a mud pie and they love it all. And they don't go, oh, well, my last mud pie was the most awesome mud pie ever. I probably can't make another one like it, so I guess I better just stop making mud pies. We can treat our stuff that way. We can treat everything that we create, whether it's a meal or, organizing our closet. Yeah, get that back.
Hey.
Yeah, they never say good or bad.
Only 29 wide.
Okay. They don't compare yesterday's crayon drawing to today's crayon drawing. They just don't. They don't compare the crayon drawing on paper to the crayon drawing on the wall. Dang it. I wish they wouldn't do that. They don't compare it to other kids. Yeah. They just do it. And you can do that too. And that's the ironic part of this all, is when you're doing it that way, it does tend to increase your income. It does tend to increase your love, because you're expressing the true nature of who you are and what you're connected to. The larger, massive part that you're connected to that we're not consciously even aware of most of the time. Expressing from that place, expressing your unique genius or beauty or offerings to the world, increases everything good, because it's the most magnificent energy, and like attracts like. So if you're in the business of every day expressing your own magnificent energy without regard to where it goes, more magnificent energy comes to you. It has to happen that way. So I wish that Harper Lee had kept writing. I wish that right after Mockingbird and her Pulitzer Prize, she had churned out 5 cheap and easy books in a row. A light romance, a police procedural, a children's story, a cookbook, some kind of pulpy action adventure story, anything. You might think I'm kidding, but I'm not. Imagine what she might have created, even accidentally, with such an approach. At the very least, she could have tricked everyone into forgetting that she'd once been Harper Lee. She could have tricked herself into forgetting that she'd once been Harper Lee, which might have been artistically liberating. I haven't read the second book that she wrote, but Morgan said it's excellent. And the only criticism is coming from people who expect it to be like To Killing Mockingbird. But as a book on its own, it's fantastic. Fortunately, after so many decades of silence, we do get to hear more of Lee's voice. Recently, a lost early manuscript was found. But I wish someone had been able to convince her to keep writing for the entirety of her life and to keep publishing all along. It would have been a gift to the world. And it would have been a gift to her as well, to have been able to remain a writer and enjoy the pleasures and satisfactions of that work for herself, if for no one else. Because in the end, creativity is a gift to the creator, not just a gift to the audience. Your creations are a gift to you doing the creating. And I would say, hi, your gifts are a gift to the creator, capital C, and your creative self, as well as whoever gets the joy of seeing it, if anyone sees it. A lot of artists do art and nobody gets to see it. A lot of poets write and no one ever gets to see the work. The way I looked at my books is I wanted them out in the world, and I didn't care where they went after that. It mattered to me to get them out there available, but I really, honestly, don't even think about them. I didn't count sales, I didn't count likes or shares or forwards or any of that. I just wanted them out there. Good enough. I wish somebody had given Ralph Ellison the same sort of advice. Just write anything and put it out there with reckless abandon. And F. Scott Fitzgerald, too. And any other creator, famous or obscure, who ever vanished beneath the shadow of their own real or imagined reputation. I wish somebody had told them all to go fill up a bunch of pages with blah, 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 and just publish it for heaven's sake and ignore the outcome. So you see, like, if you do crap, and you just do it, accidentally you're going to stumble across something amazing. And by just churning out material, you get comfortable with the process of not caring where it goes after it's created. Does it seem sacrilegious even to suggest this? Good. Just because creativity is mystical doesn't mean it shouldn't be demystified, especially if it means liberating artists from the confines of their own grandiosity, panic, and ego. My sister is working to get, well, at some point, to get together my uncle's poetry. He's a poet, an amazing poet, and probably where I got my love of poetry, because he read so much poetry and was writing poetry when we were really little, always. And so I want to get that together in a book. I do. And I think that's been put on them. I think they think that they've done one book, or they only have one book in them. And I think you have as many books in you as you want to have, as you're willing to have, let's say that. I want to get my uncle's poetry in a book so that it's out there for other people to benefit from. But it doesn't really matter where it goes from there. If he makes a little money off of it. It's the second book. My nose is so itchy. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know if I got, like, dust or what. Maybe my sweater was dusty. It's been in the closet for a while. Oh, yeah. That's the second book that's wanting to be written. Of mine, I have three. I have 3 out there and 1 in process. Oh, in general. Yeah. Yes, in general. Okay, so let's read one more section. Or at least part of this section, because this has to do with money, and this has to do with love, and this has to do with anything else that we close our hands around and want to grasp onto. Let it come and go. The most important thing to understand about, I know I'm butchering the pronunciation, eudaimonia. It's EUDAIMONIA. The most important thing to understand about that is the exhilarating encounter between a human being and divine creative inspiration is that you cannot expect it to be there for you all the time. It will come and go, and you must let it come and go. The more you grasp onto it, the more you will push it away. I know this personally because my genius, wherever it comes from, doesn't keep regular hours. My genius, for what he is worth, doesn't work on human time. He certainly doesn't arrange his schedule around my convenience. Yeah, I totally agree. Sometimes I suspect that my genius might be moonlighting on the side as somebody else's genius. Maybe even working for a bunch of different artists, like some kind of freelance creative contractor. Sometimes I grope around in the dark, desperately looking for magical creative stimulus, and all I come up with is something that feels like a damp washcloth. Yuck. And then suddenly, whoosh, inspiration arrives out of the clear blue sky, and then whoosh, it's gone again. Same with money, same with love. Same with your energy. It's there and it's gone. It's there and it's gone. And both are okay. I once took a nap on a commuter train, and while I was asleep, I dreamed an entire short story. Yeah, let's just drink. Absolutely intact. I awoke from my dream, grabbed a pen, wrote it down in a fevered burst of inspiration. This was the closest I've ever come to having a pure Ruth Stone moment. Some channel opened wide within me, and the words poured forth page after page without any effort whatsoever. When I finished writing that short story, I barely had to revise a word of it. It felt right just the way it was. It felt right and strange. It wasn't even the kind of thing I would normally write about. Several reviewers later took note of how different that story was from the other stories of my collection. One critic tellingly described it as Yankee magic realism. It was a tale of enchantment written under enchantment, and even a stranger could feel the fairy dust in it. I've never written anything like it before or since. I still think that short story is the most superbly formed hidden jewel I ever unburied in myself, and that was big magic at play unmistakably. But that was also 22 years ago, and it's never happened again. And believe me, I've taken a lot of naps on a lot of trains in the meantime. I've had moments of wondrous creative communion since then, but nothing so pure and exhilarating as that one wild encounter. It came and it went. What I'm saying is this. If my plan is to sit around waiting for another such unadulterated and impassioned creative visitation, I may be waiting for a very long time. So I don't sit around waiting to write until my genius decides to pay me a visit. If anything, I've come to believe that my genius spends a lot of time waiting around for me, waiting to see if I'm truly serious about this line of work. I feel sometimes my genius sits in a corner and watches me at my desk, month after month, just to be sure I really mean it, just to be sure I'm really giving this creative endeavor my wholehearted effort. When my genius is convinced that I'm not just messing around here, he may show up and offer assistance. Sometimes that assistance will not arrive until 2 years into a project. Sometimes that assistance will not last for more than 10 minutes. And this is what Stephen Pressfield talks about in War of Art and Turning Pro, the importance of showing up every day. He calls it the muse, so that when the muse pays a visit, she finds you ready and waiting. And a consistent daily practice is that, so that when inspiration appears, you're ready to receive it. You're already there. You're already in the space to hear it, or see it, or feel it, or whatever it is for you. When the assistance arrives, the moving sidewalk feeling, I am delighted and I go along for the ride. In such instances, I write like I'm not quite myself. I lose track of time and space and self. While it's happening, I thank the mystery for its help, and when it departs, I let it go and keep on working diligently anyhow, hoping that someday it will reappear. I work either way, you see? So she shows up and she does her work, inspired or not inspired, feeling like doing it or not feeling like doing it. I work either way, assisted or unassisted, because that's what you must do in order to live a fully creative life. I work steadily, and I always thank the process. Whether I am touched by grace or not, I thank creativity for allowing me to engage with it at all. You have to make yourself available. You have to do the work a little bit every day and show up. You have to show up for it. You can't just dream about winning a Grammy. You have to play your guitar every day. Can you imagine how many hours Taylor Spence sat in her room writing little cheeseball songs and learning her craft? Many. That girl is not a studio production like, I won't say who. I have a whole list of people that I think are studio products. Taylor Swift, this is what I admire about her, even though some people hate on her. I admire that she is not a creation of somebody else. She's a creation of herself. She learned her craft. She put in the work. She does her work every day. And she is reaping the benefits of that. Yeah, the Lady Gaga, the people who do the work. It's not the studio handing them a facade. It's not the studio giving them the songs and they then perform them. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's different. It feels different. Okay. I'll just say I don't think Kanye West does his work. I don't think he does any work. I think his work is whining and giving us all something to talk about. Okay. Either way, this whole process is kind of amazing. What we get to do, what we get to attempt, what we sometimes get to commune with. Gratitude always, always gratitude. Gratitude always, always gratitude. I'll stop there. What really stands out to me is showing up every day, and it will come and go and you must let it come and go. I actually circled that. It'll come and go. And the reason that's on my mind is because money is an energy the same. And when it comes in, I can get real grabby with it because it's usually been gone for a long time. So when it does come in, I want to hold on to it. And it bothers me then to pay things, and it's a real struggle. So what happens is it goes out again in ways that I would prefer it didn't. Because I make mistakes or something gets overlooked or somebody's had a check for 6 months and then decides to cash it. Yeah. So it's going to go. money is going to go out. So either I can go ahead and pay the stuff up front that needs to be taken care of, or I can drag my feet and that money's going to go out somewhere else, and I'm still going to have the original things that should have been taken care of immediately and weren't, and now can't be. You see? It's a wave. You can't hold on to a wave that needs to go back to the ocean. It's the same with creativity. It's the same with love. People love you for a while, and then sometimes they leave. And you can let them leave willingly, or you can grasp and hold on. Yeah. And make life really painful. So the image I got one day about this was, I think I told some of you, and you may or may not have been here that day, but I was working on this concept, and I was working on receiving as a concept, receiving energy at all, and so I had a tendency to hold my hands up with my arms far apart, but then you can't see, but like with my hands like this. And then one day I just felt, turn your hands around. So I turned my hands around. Let me see if I can show you. Like a basket. I've talked about this before. And so holding a basket, and it really, I could feel the difference. Like, okay, now I'm receiving. Now I'm receiving in this giant basket. Okay, so then I got comfortable with that. Like, oh, cool, I'm receiving, and my receiving's going up, and that's awesome. But then I'm holding it. Yeah, but then I'm holding on to this container. So I'm not letting it go back out. And it's meant to come in and go through. Come in and go through. So I'm letting it come in, and then I'm trying to quick slap a lid on it so it will stay there. And then the lid rumbles, and I don't take care of the stuff I'm supposed to take care of. And then the lid blows off, and the money goes flying, and the energy goes flying. And it doesn't go where it needed to go. There were places it needed to be directed to, but because I'm grasping onto it, it just flies away. Does that make sense? So the other day, the next image I got, or the next movement for my body, I do this for my body. Like I'll literally, if I feel like I'm not receiving well, or if I feel greedy, or if I feel what am I looking for? It starts with a D. Deprived. If I'm in a state of feeling deprivation, then I'll just make myself stand in this position. So I'm like, okay, no, I'm receiving. I'm receiving. The next step that I got was, with my palms open, was this. So I started with this, and I got told to do this, and then I got told to do that. So standing in this energy, breathing in, exhaling out. Inhale in, exhale out. So it's coming in to the container, and it's going back out. It's coming in, it's going out. Just like air. So I've been doing that to try to get comfortable receiving in and letting it flow out. Timed with my breathing. So that movement. The other movement I felt was that, up here, like hand out here expanding, hand turning, back and forth. But this is the one that feels most comfortable. In, out, in, out. So you can play with that yourself. And creative energy is the same. So like when I draw a drawing, if it's going really well, sometimes I stop. Yeah, because I'm so scared it's going to disappear. So I even like hoard on to my creative energy. Yeah, sharing. So, whatever's coming in also has to go back out. It's not natural. It's against the law of nature. Nothing comes in and stays. Nothing. All energy, it's natural. Exactly. We're totally on the same page. All energy, it's the thermodynamic laws. Which one is it? That all energy is in motion. It's either increasing or it's decreasing. It's rising or it's falling. It's being built or it's being destroyed. It's in motion all the time. And so when we try to lock it down, whether we lock down love and try to compartmentalize it with this much to that person and that much to this person and nothing to that person, we just screw it all up. Yeah, we don't own it. Yeah, that's a great way to see it too. We don't own that energy. It doesn't belong to us. We can't grasp onto it and hang onto it. Use the good dishes. The dishes are going to break. And that's okay, because you can get more dishes. Let's drink. Does that make sense? So if you're struggling with hoardiness, if you're struggling with feeling deprived or grippy or grabby or greedy or grasping or whatever word you want to put on it, try just experimenting with that energy of feeling energy coming in, and then just turn your hands over and generously, like Betty said, generously sharing it back out. Margaritas! You take the margarita in and you buy one for a friend. So it comes in and goes out. It also can come in and come back out in ugly ways if you drink too many margaritas. Which is why I don't drink them, because tequila makes me ill. So anyway, how's that? Is that enough for today? Use your good stuff. Then there's room for more to come to you. Right. We buy too much. Yes, we buy too much. We've just gotten confused, and that's okay, because we can get unconfused. We can figure this out. We can do it. We're totally capable of doing this. It's just remembering what we already know. No, don't stop. Yeah, we get really confused, but I do have to wrap up because I'm going to go down, get Morgan to do my hair, and stay the night with the twins and my daughter-in-law, and have a night away from the cat crazies. So, today's Friday, right? So yeah, so we'll be back tomorrow with doubting stuff and twins in the background. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, much love, and take what you can. Those cats do own me. Cats are crazy. You're welcome. Yay, 18 tomorrow. Ashlyn's talking up a storm, just talking, so I'm sure she'll have something to say. And much love to you guys. Have a great Friday. You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of my receiving and giving. She's the world's youngest scoper. We give Ashlyn and Avery their own show. Okay. Bye.